Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I had a whole bunch of people send me this article, as well as Dan King, who is the communications project manager at the Institute for Justice. It's a press release. Alabama residents file lawsuit challenging warrantless snooping by game wardens. And they have handled cases like this in other states. And so, interestingly enough, if the police want to come and snoop around your property, get a warrant. But game wardens, somehow, some states say, well, game wardens are different. See? And so recently, 3 Alabama residents teamed up with the Institute for Justice to file a lawsuit challenging an Alabama statute that permits game wardens from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, the DCNR, to search private property without a warrant or consent. So these people got together and decided to file the lawsuit after each of them faced multiple privacy intrusions from game wardens from the state. And so think about this. There's a statute that says, oh no, game wardens are allowed to do this. Why don't they just write a statute that says police can do it too? Oh, it turns out that wouldn't be legal. So why is it legal with game wardens? So none of these people have been charged with any crimes, yet game wardens have snooped around their properties without warrants on multiple occasions. That's because of an Alabama statute that allows game wardens to enter upon any land in the performance of their duty. And that means whether it's posted field or residential yard, the statute gives wardens broad power to roam around private property without any warrant. And by the way, suppose you're a police officer in a town and you think somebody's doing something illegal on a piece of land out there. Could we have a game warden go out there and poke around a little bit and just report back on what he sees? I mean, he's allowed to go out there because the statute says he can, right? The Alabama Constitution makes it clear that if the government wants to come searching your property, they need a warrant based on probable cause. Game wardens are not exempt from the Constitution, says the attorney from the IJ. The invasion of these people's property and their privacy began in 2024. One of them owns 10 acres in Killen, which she's lived on her entire life. For decades, she used the backyard for outdoor recreation, but as she got older, she's been less able to enjoy the land herself. So she lets her neighbor and his kids roam about the land. The arrangement worked great for both families until last year when game wardens started showing up and poking around. The plaintiff says, this used to be a place where I come to relax and get away from it all, but now that I know someone could be snooping around, I find it hard to just go there and relax. In November of last year, the game wardens once again returned to the property. This time, they said they'd been watching the land and gave them a warning about baiting deer. But it turns out the guy they were talking to has never baited deer and has only shot one deer on the land that was with a bow, and that was a long time ago. Since that time, he stopped using land for his personal meditation and has kept a closer eye on his kids when they use it. And in case you're curious, this man was a military veteran who used to use the property as a place to relieve stress. It's kind of go out in the woods kind of thing, you know? So in Muscle Shoals, a man owns and leases a combined 86 acres of sprawling fields, marshes, and swamps. Now, unlike the previous 2 people we talked about, this man does use his land for hunting with his kids and grandkids. There are 2 entrances to the land, a private gravel road and a gated entrance. The man first saw a game warden's truck parked on his land back in August of 2018. As he walked up to talk to the warden sped away. And if you're not breaking the law, you're not doing anything wrong, why are you running? 6 years later, a neighbor sent the man a photo of another game warden parked on his property. Once again, the man tried to talk to the warden, who sped away. Since that time, he's put up no trespassing signs and installed a camera at the entrance, which in January of this year captured another game warden attempting to drive onto his property and then apparently seeing the camera and turning around. By the way, the man is the president of the local Ducks Unlimited chapter. He says, I'm all about preserving wildlife in the outdoors, but game wardens still have to respect people's rights. Aside from my own privacy concerns, I don't like that the wardens don't wear orange when they're roaming around. It makes it very dangerous when you're hunting with rifles and people aren't wearing colors that make it easy to see. IJ is the nation's leading organization protecting Americans' privacy and property rights as part of its project on the Fourth Amendment. IJ has challenged warrantless searches of private land in states throughout the country, including Pennsylvania, Louisiana, and Tennessee. I've talked about some of those before. While the Pennsylvania and Louisiana cases are ongoing, IJ defeated the warrantless surveillance in Tennessee. And I had a client once who told me that he had a piece of property that had water moving across it in the form of a creek. And he said every now and then he'd see people out there walking around wearing bright orange. And at first, thinking they were hunters, would walk over and say, "Excuse me," and they'd say, "Oh, sorry, we are from," and I forgot if you said it was the county or the state, but somebody who's in charge of overseeing rivers and creeks. And it turns out that the creek in question was the drainage point for a bunch of properties in that area. And so when properties in that area didn't drain properly, one of the first questions people had was, is something wrong with the creek? Is the creek jammed up or something happening over there? And so he said, number one, they were wearing orange. Number two, they were carrying ID. They were happy to announce themselves. They hadn't snuck on the property. And they said, we're here because of this. And they'd say, the people over there and over there, their property's not draining properly, and we want to double check to make sure this creek isn't having some sort of problem. So they had a valid reason to be there, but they weren't just snooping around. And if I was a judge, and again, I don't want to be a judge, but if I was a judge in this case, I would ask the state to identify who the officer was who sped away when approached by the landowner. And I'd love to hear the explanation for that, because you understand that that right there makes you look guilty of something. I'm talking about just from a human standpoint, just human nature, just a natural common sense reaction. If I were to see you walking up my driveway and I go out to talk to you and you just turn around and run, now I wonder what you were up to. You might have just decided to run. I don't know. But the point is, that's the common sense reaction. And so when there's a game warden, presumably carries a badge, possibly even a gun, and they're out there enforcing the law, they shouldn't be shy about who they are. And by the way, they ought to wear orange. And the fact they're not wearing orange, that's probably because they want to blend in, because they are snooping around. And so the fact that there's a law that says game wardens can snoop around on your property if they want to, but the rest of the laws say the government can't. Where do the game wardens come from? Are they freelance? Privateers? No, they work for the government agents, just carrying a different badge, that's all. And so this is the kind of thing where when I hear that this kind of situation exists, I'm like, really? This is still going on? And sadly, IJ's got to go and fight these things on a state-by-state basis. And they've already won one up in Tennessee. They got a couple more in the hopper. And now they got one more they added to the list. And, yeah. Well, there's a statute that says they can. Has the statute been tested in court? Oh, it hasn't. We'll see you in court. So I always mention this. The Institute for Justice is a nonprofit organization that gets by entirely by the support, the generosity of people who believe in their cause. And so I like to mention that. I'll put a link in the description below the video to their website. They've also got a YouTube channel. And if you can donate, donate. If you can't donate, just follow them. Bookmark their page. Check out the stuff they do. Because I considered myself fairly well informed. And yet, after dealing with the Institute for Justice for a little while, I've discovered that these guys and gals have located a bunch of cases that's still kind of like, what? That's still going on in this day and age. 2025. How old is that Bill of Rights now? A couple hundred years? and we still have to litigate it? Apparently we do. So everybody everybody who sent it, thanks a lot. Dan King, thank you very much for sending it too, my friend. And there you go. Alabama residents file a lawsuit challenging warrantless snooping by game wardens. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Life is a balance of holding on and letting go.